Slavery in the South. Although most people think of white Southerners in the 1700s and 1800s as slave owners, only 1 in 4 Southern families actually owned slaves. 3/4 of Southern families did not own slaves. Not all blacks in the South were slaves either. By the time the Civil War began in 1861, about 25% of the blacks in the South were free. Most free blacks in the South weren't much better off than slaves. But in some areas, they were allowed to marry, own property, attend schools, and even own slaves. Most movies and books show hundreds of slaves working on huge plantations, but that isn't a complete picture. Only about 30,000 Southerners owned 50 or more slaves. Most Southerners who owned slaves lived and worked on smaller farms and in cities. Slaves not only worked in agriculture, but they also worked in shipyards, businesses, and as house slaves. Sometimes slaves were hired out by their masters, and all wages were paid to their owners. Southerners needed cheap labor to work the fields of cotton and tobacco. This made slavery very important to the economy. The invention of the cotton gin by Eli Whitney in 1793 cut the cost of producing cotton. This machine could clean cotton much faster than people could. Since this lowered the cost of producing cotton, the price went down, and the demand for cotton cloth increased. Growing more cotton meant the need for even more workers. Those who owned large plantations and many slaves were from the wealthiest families. They sought to maintain their wealth by controlling the source of their wealth: cotton, slaves, and all laws regarding slavery. Unlike other societies, slavery in the South was not based on forcing prisoners of war to be slaves. Slavery was based on race. The early European colonists believed that Africans were inferior, suited by their character and circumstances to be slaves forever. The attitude remained most strongly in the South, long after Europe abolished slavery and the slave trade.